Hello everyone, welcome back to RetroComms. Today I've got a lot of Z6Ms here in front of me. At least I think they're Z6Ms. Haven't checked the model number on these two yet. As you can see, their keypads are a bit different. As you can also see, some of these are a little worse for wear. We've got a missing key here, two busted screens. Some of these are missing their batteries and battery covers. But I got them for around $12 on Mercari, so $2 per phone, not bad. Not bad at all. Knowing me, we might can spruce these up just a tiny bit. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that I also have these two up here. Well, this one is from my personal stash of 4 parts or untested phones. And as we can see, it's a little worse for wear. And then there is this one, my known good Z6M. It was on Alltel. I've done soft touch removal on it, sadly losing some of the little design on the back cover, but somehow its D-pad and center button got ripped off the keypad. This is not its original D-pad. I can't remember what this one came off of, but not original. Oh, and its battery's low. Guess I better power that one off real quick. But, oh, that was a quick shutdown. But anyway, we're going to be having a look at these and seeing exactly what's wrong with each of them. Some of it's pretty obvious, but a couple of these are straight up untested. Let me put my battery from this one into each of these, and we'll see exactly what is wrong with these phones before we jump into the repair process. And I've noticed testing these might take a little bit longer than I had initially expected. So as we can see here, this is a Motorola Z6M. It's the CDMA version, I believe. And its battery plugs in like so. Terminals on the bottom there. Well, this is the Z6 right here, I think. And it has battery terminals there on the side. I do have one of these batteries. It actually came with a lot, but it is charging in the Z6 that I acquired at some point and ended up in my dead box. So these 4, I believe, will have to wait until that battery is charged up a bit more before we can test them. But these 2, I'll just go ahead and bring it over here. These 2 I can go ahead and test with the battery I got from this one, which is also a Z6M. This battery came with a lot, as did this one over here, but this one I do not trust. I'm not sure how well this comes through on camera, but it is bulged out. Not putting power to that anytime soon. So let's see what these Z6s have to offer. Well, Z6Ms rather. I'll test the Z6s in a bit. This one we can see has sustained some keypad damage. Try to power it on. Note that it will not come on if this lock switch here is engaged. Found that out the hard way trying to boot this one up earlier. This one's taking its time, but I do see its screen is functional. Definitely has good vibration functionality. Also on Alltel. And this one is locked with a PIN number. We'll see how far we get. There may be ways of bypassing it, but if not, well, we might have to do a little board swap. Let's just take that battery out and plop it into the next Z6M. Wonder why this one has this little notch there on the screen. Is that a line there in the display? Yes, that display has a line in it. So let's open the apps. Sound works. It was kind of hard to do with one hand. And all the keys seem to work. So this one's in fairly good condition. I believe it was factory reset. Well, I don't know how much battery percentage I've got on the battery I just tried to charge. This one that I'd had in my parts box has a busted panel. Well, I think its motherboard is good, so that might come in handy later. But for right now, let's see what we can find out about these devices. Now, I think they're going to tell me to insert a SIM card, but I just need to see if those screens work and these motherboards are showing any signs of life. Taking a while to boot up. Button's a little bit sticky, but it could just be the screen. Could be the battery's a little low. I'll plug this in and get back to you guys. And today is one of those days I am glad to have a whole box full of random chargers. I have multiple mini USBs. And I think there is something either board level or something wrong with the upper display on this device right here. Because I have it plugged in, and when I used this device, it showed up instantly. But with this one, well, you saw it. The keypad flickered and that was it. So let's remove this. And we'll put this battery into one of these two. All right, that took long enough. Let's plug this thing in and see what we get. Hello, Moto. That's always a good sign. Again, I think this is going to ask me to insert a SIM. It's charging the battery. Of course, now we can see exactly what our percentage is, or at least the little status indicator that Motorola's give, because the screen actually works on this handset. See if it has enough to power on. Insert SIM, it says. Well, can't test much anything else. Oh. Okay, yes, emergency calls only. Okay. Well, we at least know that this one boots and charges, and it seems like the keys work. So on to the next one. And this other orange one, the black and orange, versus that gray and orange one on Altel that was locked with a PIN number. I think I like the black and orange better. Let's try plugging it in. I like that most of these do still have their flaps. My flaps are missing. I get the invention of them, keeping dust out of the ports, but as a collector, it's always annoying when those go missing. Let's see. All right, it's plugged in. Should be acknowledging. But it is not. We'll see if... Okay. It's odd that it did not acknowledge the charger being plugged in, but that could be something board level. I'm almost scared to put power to this one. This one looks like it has seen some things, and its slider mechanism is a little bit loose. We'll see how far we get. Okay, it's a good sign. Yes, I know you're charging. Can I see the rest of the menu? And it's rebooting. Okay, that could just be due to low voltage. This battery hasn't seen action in quite some time. So maybe it didn't know which mode to boot into, whether it's just showing that it's charging or giving access. I haven't seen that happen before, but I can't rule it out with a lot of phones like this. If you'll notice, this one's keypad is not like this one. Could have been a different version. Okay, and it's almost like boot looping. Could be low voltage, but We'll see what happens. I'll try to boot it up without the charger connected. We do at least know that it boots and that the screen is functional. Okay, on to the next one. You need to do further diagnosis on that one. Hey, it boots. That screen is decimated. The keypad is nearly worn through. Someone must have done a lot of texting on this one. But it still boots. That is one tough moto. Don't think I've heard of that carrier. Okay, D-pad is a bit stiff. It just tells me it's charging. But again, at least it boots. Well, I can see why this one didn't display. As we can see, this is the one that I'd pulled out of my parts bin. We saw that its screen was completely shattered underneath. And we see a ribbon cable connected here. This one, on the other hand, not so much. So that either means that the ribbon cable running under here has failed, or someone has been in here before. Or perhaps both, because I've never seen one of these just spontaneously unseat itself. So we're going to go deeper in here, see about that ribbon, and probably at least transplant the cable from this one onto this one. And after swapping some parts around, we've got this. A fully working red Z6. Sadly, lost the little decorative accents on the back of it because this backplane had a ribbon cable attached to it that was completely damaged. Now, I know what you're thinking. In theory, there might be a way that I could pull this old cable off of here and replace it with a new one. But that's too dangerous of an operation for the scope of what I'm trying to do, especially over something minor and cosmetic such as this. Still, this is a decent working version. It's not perfect. There are some cracks and chips just from me trying to get in here and this plastic being so old and brittle. But it does fully function. Or it would once I put the SIM card back into it. So that's at least one that I managed to save with parts from the one that I had. So we'll see about the rest of these. So remember the one on US Cellular that worked fine, just needed a cleanup? Well, I took it apart just slightly, just trying to do some soft touch removal here on this piece. And this is what I found underneath. I do not know how this device continued to work after seeing so much liquid damage. But as we saw with this little moto that still saw signs of life, showed signs of life even after whatever horrors it had seen, these are some tough little phones. I'm going to get this motherboard out of here, clean everything up with isopropyl alcohol, and hope for the best. I got this motherboard out, and just for the sake of comparison, here is the motherboard out of one of the red ones. Now you can see that the camera is included on this motherboard, but it is a separate unit on the other one. You can tell them apart this way, and because only the GSM version has the SIM card slot here. If we flip them over, also very similar. Their charge ports are even on the same side. Their keypads look as if they could be compatible, but I wouldn't try it. I've seen some odd issues come about with swapping keypads, believe it or not. But let's get this one cleaned up. And this motherboard also looks pretty bad. What I think I'm going to do here, I think I'm just going to swap this one in, just because it looks much more sound, much less damaged than this poor thing does here. And it appears that it would be compatible. Now, it originally came out of a red one with this keypad, and this one has this keypad, more reminiscent of a Motorola Razr. So we will try it, we will see what happens, and I'll get back to you after that board swap is complete. And this is why we don't board swap unless the models are exactly the same. See, this display worked flawlessly earlier. I did not put any stress on the ribbon cable. And here we're left with a blank screen. So I'm going to go back in here, pull this motherboard back out, and maybe, I don't know, we might try the one from this device right here, since this poor thing has taken an absolute beating. We'll try putting that board into this nice orange one. And here we have another little difference. This backplate came off of the one that had the severely busted screen. Its display clips in with one of these ribbon cables right here. Little jawbone connector. This one, the display just snaps onto this little Lego style ribbon connector. And the keypad, I believe, has one right there. You'll see the keypads have the same style connection here, but the display is shifted over and has a latching jawbone. Interesting difference between those two models. And here you can see the difference in the design between the two displays as well. This one, which came from this device with the cracked front glass, was in surprisingly good shape considering the abuse that the rest of the device had seen. This one came out of my red one that I had had in my untested lot for so long. And of course, it is cracked. I'm not sure how well that's picked up on camera, but you can see the damage to the panel internally right there. This one, I'm not seeing any of that except for maybe this one little spot up here. I didn't see it working long enough to note exactly how bad that panel was, but this is in surprisingly good shape. Well, this happened. 8 phones entered. Let's see how many will leave. First off, I forgot to film most of the process, but I'll talk you through the ones we couldn't save first. Out of these 2 boards here, one of them was just too far gone to salvage. The charging functionality worked intermittently. I would say it was charging when it wasn't. It would boot loop a little bit, so that one was a no-go. But the other one, even if we could salvage it, which you might look and think to yourself, well, maybe there's enough in here to where you could make another working one. It is not so. This screen can only connect to this board. This screen that can connect to this board is shattered, as well as the fact that the only keypad that I have that could connect to this board has a broken ribbon cable. So sadly, these 2 did not fare so well. But we started with 8, minus 2, that leaves these 6. So we'll get the worst one out of the way first. This one on Altel. The Altel one was originally in the orange housing, as you might remember, but we'll get back to that later. This one is passcode locked, and its keypad was damaged. So I took its D-pad and placed it onto mine, which was lacking a D-pad. I'll go back over that in a bit more depth as we get to that point. But this Altel one, the passcode locked one, technically it functions, but it's not in the best of shape, so it's kind of half in, half out at this point. This blue one on T-Mobile. This keypad doesn't sit very nicely in here. I tried to replace the membrane with the one from the busted up one that did have a center button, but that didn't go too smoothly. The center button cracked in the process. And I really don't want to use the keypad that came, or the D-pad that came on that membrane, just because it is so small. It doesn't really fit the rest of the phone too nicely. So I'm probably just going to use a dab of B7000 to lock this D-pad in place, since the black one that came on there kind of protrudes. but I'm not sure just yet. This one, jury's still out, but it does fully function. Another thing to note, its battery cover was stripped during the soft touch removal process. This one started off black. It probably went to that black and orange one over there, or maybe one of these down here, but no longer. It is now just the standard color of the metal that was underneath. I might look into finding a way to recolor these, recoat these, some kind of way to match the original frame of the device or the color of this outer housing, but I'm not too sure about those processes yet. But this one is functional. This one, it does power on and does appear to work, but it's on an obscure carrier called Unicell. My friend Tony from Tony's Phone Collection likes devices that are on obscure carriers, and he loves the Motorola Z6 series, so I may be sending this off to him. But all in all, this one works. Minus this stripped battery cover, like the one I showed there. This one is in great condition. I even kept its little flap here. This probably isn't its original flap, but it's the flap that I was able to get out of there, so at least it has one. As most devices with flaps, as you see right there, do not contain them. And I'll show you another example of that as we go down the line. Here is this red one. This was made from the parts with the two red ones that I showed at the start. The screen from mine was damaged, and the ribbon cable from the one that came in the lot was broken clean off. So we were able to make one good one out of the two damaged ones. So this red one lives to function another day. Sadly, its front screen is cracked, but I've certainly seen worse. And maybe there's a way I can find a replacement screen glass at some point. But all in all, it looks pretty good. Next up, this orange one, orange and silver on US Cellular, missing its charging port flap, but still got the one for its 3.5mm jack. This one works. I don't have the batteries in any of these, forgive me, and I did have to remove the soft touch on this battery cover. And last but not least, my known good. Of course, it's still alive and well. I gave it the headphone jack cover from this old Altel device that is passcode locked, as well as the keypad and center button. So now this one is in perfect condition with the matching green keypad and dial pad. And even with the soft touch removed, I think it still looks pretty nice. But overall, this could have gone worse. We have two that we weren't able to save, one that is passcode locked and needs a keypad, but still shows signs of life, and these five that, despite a couple of minor cosmetic blemishes, are still 100% functional. So I call that a success. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully I'll be able to devote more time to this in the coming months. Maybe even figure out a better camera situation so I can actually show you guys more of my repair process. Stay tuned, we might have some more interesting content on the way. This is RetroComms, signing off.